Good morning, everyone. It's Sunday, April 28th, the final weekend in April. Massachusetts Congressman Stephen Lynch is our guest this morning. Let's go on the record. After more than 2 decades in Congress, the former iron worker has a reputation for showing his steel on tough issues. From foreign aid to health care to presidential politics, he's got a lot to say. We have a lot of questions. Let's go on the record.
From WCVB Channel 5, the inside word from Washington to Beacon Hill. Today's newsmakers are going on the record.
Welcome to OTR, everyone. I'm Ed Harding, along with News Center 5's political reporter Sharman Sacchetti. It's great to see you this morning. And joining us at the table, as you can see, is Congressman Stephen Lynch, representing the state's 8th district. It's always great to see you. Thank you for coming in.
Good to be back. Good to
Happy
see you
April.
both.
Thanks for being here. Well, let's start with the tensions on college campuses here and also across the country. More than 100 Emerson College students were arrested last week as Boston police broke up a pro-Palestinian encampment. 4 police officers were injured. Now, we're seeing these encampments at several schools. I want to get your thoughts about them. Do you support the students that are protesting no matter what side they're on?
Well, these protests seem to embody threats as well, especially to Jewish students. So I've had kids in my district complain about the fact that they've had to take the mezuzahs down off their rooms, off the door jambs, so that they wouldn't be identified as Jewish students.
They're fearful?
Yeah, they're fearful. A number of them have been threatened. So there's something different going on here. This is not, in previous protests, there was a protest against an idea or an action. This is actually a protest where there are victims on campus as well as aggressors on campus. And the first job of the administration in any of these campuses is to keep the students safe. And so when you see students starting to come home or saying, "Mom, Dad, I don't feel safe on campus," that is sad. That's a failure on the part of the administration. So I also, when police show up on campus, that's a serious event. So, it's not done lightly. And so I just deplore the fact that, Emerson, that's got a wonderful reputation as a liberal arts school. Many great alum come out of Emerson, and to have this happen on campus is it's sort of a black eye there.
It doesn't sound like you think Boston police were too heavy-handed in this kind of a situation. They've received some criticism.
Well, over 100 kids arrested, so there was something going on there. I'd like to see, how many of those were students and whether there was something else going on there. I'm not quite sure, but when the police show up, you should probably, tone it down.
Let's drill down on the issue. What would you like to see happen in Gaza, and what role should America play?
Well, certainly, I have called for a ceasefire quite a while ago. There are many people that disagree with Netanyahu's policies, including many Israelis. He didn't win by a huge margin there, so it's ironic that this collective punishment on all Jewish people because people disagree with Netanyahu's policies. It's an unusual response, and certainly I supported funding for Israel last week. We had an Israel funding bill. I think they need to be able to protect themselves, especially with the recent attack by Iran. So that's a game changer there. So, but again, look, this should be a situation where we are trying to get the hostages released, reduce the level of military activity in Gaza. Most of the population is gathered now in Rafah Gate down south. I've been into Gaza several times, and it's a densely urban area that, in the best of circumstances, would prevent, a precise military action against a small group of insurgents.
You mentioned Netanyahu. He says that the anti-Semitism is behind the protests here in the United States. What's your, agree, disagree? What's your reaction?
Yes, there's some of that. There's some of that going on.
So should he step down, do you think, Netanyahu?
Look, he's in a democracy, so I think they should, as quickly as possible, get to a situation where they hold him responsible for the security lapse that occurred on October 7th. So, in some ways, people believe he's prolonging this military operation and expanding it in order to preserve his time and his leverage in the upcoming election.
I do want to just get your thoughts on these campus-wide protests that are happening across the country. Do you think there's some sort of, I mean, they all seem kind of coordinated. What do you think is driving this?
Well, there has been a movement on these campuses in the past. You know, the efforts to boycott, you know, Israeli businesses, and so, you know, there was a nucleus of activity on these campuses in that direction, sort of against the Israeli occupation in Gaza, pre-existing the events of October 7th. So, you know, and let's face it, there's been brutal attacks on the civilian population in Gaza. You know, I know the goal is to get after Hamas, but the civilian casualties have been just atrocious.
You just talked about the money, the billions of dollars that has now been approved and on its way. The House, then the Senate. Then President Biden pulled together that foreign aid bill to send billions to not only Israel, but Ukraine and Taiwan as well. Yeah. So Democrats came to the aid of the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, to get the job done. Will Democrats save the Speaker from far-right Republicans?
It might be necessary, but it will come as a price, right? So we need a couple of bridges over the Cape Cod Canal. That might be the price that Mike Johnson has to pay to get my vote to keep him in office. Remember, we have an election coming up, so so the speakership will be in the Republicans' hands until the election.
Should he be the Speaker of the House? I mean, in your opinion?
Well, he is the Speaker of the House.
I know, but should he be the Speaker of the House?
Well, that was their election. Look, he did the right thing last week. You know, I've been in and out of Ukraine. I know that the ex-president, former President Trump, has been against funding for Ukraine. So Johnson did the right thing in the face of that partisan hostility against his decision. So I'm thankful for Mike Johnson this week. For doing that.
This week.
For taking care of, you know, the Israel piece, taking care of Ukraine in a big way, Taiwan, and also taking up the TikTok bill as well.
That is what I wanted to ask you about next, TikTok. That also got thrown into the mix. Do you think the legislation to force a sale will hold up in court? Because that seems to be the next step.
Yeah, I do. I think there's a justifiable national security interest in preventing the Chinese Communist Party from gathering data on especially with the velocity of information, how quickly it can change hands and be used against a population. I think there's justification there.
You're not worried about whatever, the right to free speech and the weights and balances. Is that how it's weighted?
No. We're not questioning TikTok's operation. We're contesting its ownership.
Got it.
You know what I mean? So if a private company did what TikTok's doing, fine, good, go at it. You know, and there are a number of companies that are doing that. You know?
Let's talk about Stewart Hospital.
Yeah.
So they started rebuilding Norwood Hospital after a devastating flood. That is a Stewart Hospital in your district. Now it's in limbo. One state representative is asking the Healy administration to clear the way for a sale or a lease.
Would that be John Rogers?
That would be John Rogers,
okay,
State Representative John Rogers
and
of
Mike
Norwood.
Rush, the senator down there, is involved in that as well. Yeah.
So he wants to clear the way for a sale to Mass General Brigham or another provider. That was 215 patient beds. What do you think should happen here?
Yeah, well, Norwood's a unique case. As you said, they're rebuilding that. It's not quite ready yet. So the new owner
they've stopped building it at this point.
The new owner would have to come in and finish that project and then take over ownership and operation. So I think there is a natural affinity between Mass General and Norwood Hospital. I think it would be a good match. However, we've got 8 or 9 other hospitals that have to be addressed as well.
Good Samaritan in Brockton, also in your
district. I do not
district.
want to see Stewart rewarded for what they have done.
So to that point, what should happen to Stewart?
Well, first of all, that model doesn't work. So for-profit hospital ownership, what Stewart did was wrong. They sold the land that the hospital sits on for about $800 million, and so now as a result of that sale, as a federal official, when we send federal money, and we sent close to $200 million to Steward during the pandemic for the hospitals, I don't know whether that money went for yacht payments or whether it went to providing medical care for the people who went to those hospitals.
Steward did this because they could, though. So,
Well,
I mean, should there be restrictions?
Well, remember, so Stewart refused to provide financials to the governor, Governor Patrick, Governor Baker, and Governor Healey. So they have flatly refused to give us the financial information that we would have been able to tell what they were doing with the money they were receiving. So so that's the crux of the problem. And they're in court now battling over that and have been for several years.
Congressman Lynch is in the chair. We're on the record this morning. Stay with us.